All right. 6 o'clock here. We're in the STEMbassy. Waiting for my viewers to pop in. We have an exciting show. Exciting show coming on tonight. We have some people in the audience. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. How are you all doing? How's everybody doing tonight? Let me know in the comments. Doing great? Make sure you share the live stream so that other people can join. Doing great. Glad you guys could join. We have so much to talk about tonight. And by the way, if you guys aren't aware, that music video is mine. It's called HBIC. And some of the people who are with us on the live stream tonight are in that video. Dr. Jones was in that video. And we have some good company with us tonight. So I can't wait to introduce you all to them. My name is Raven Baxter. I go by Raven the Science Maven on the internet. And I am a molecular scientist, and I like to call myself an entertainer as well, a community builder of sorts. And I am really passionate about bringing members of the STEM community together to just have fun, talk, exchange ideas, and connect with people who are not in the STEM community. And it's a learning opportunity for everybody. It's a chance to have a good time. And we're going to get started. We're already 3 minutes late. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our guest tonight. I have first Science Mom, bringing Science Mom in. How are you doing today, Science Mom?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I live just outside of Las Vegas. In fact, it's springtime and real nice weather where I am, and my yard is full of flowers. So I was telling you earlier, Raven, this is what's in my front yard right now.
I love it. And she's got it in a flask. I love it.
Erlenmeyer flask, of course.
Yes, Erlenmeyer flask. Thank you so much.
I got the name Science Mom because when my son was in first grade, I was going in to volunteer in his class, and my name was Andrew's mom because my son's name was Andrew. His teacher told me she had to drop a lot of the science curriculum because of the new testing requirements, and that kind of broke my heart. So I asked her if I could come in once a week and do an exciting science demonstration for the kids. And that class changed my name from Andrew's mom to Science Mom, and it stuck. I've been sharing science with elementary age kids ever since.
That is such a great story. And thank you for stepping up to the plate because we need science.
We do. We really do.
Yeah. All right. So bringing in Alexa here. Hi, Alexa. How are you?
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Go ahead and introduce yourself to the folks.
Yeah, so I'm Alexa. I am an ocular histologist here in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, which is a very long way of saying that I play with eyeballs on a day-to-day basis, and it is super fun. I have a neuro background, so for me, moving to eyeballs, super new world. My fun fact is that I teach a dance fitness class. I teach a form of dance fitness called work, W-E-R-Q, because we slay all day. We get all sweaty. It's fun. It's super fabulous. And I think it's a great way to balance both my research creativity with like some more artsy-fartsy, for lack of a better phrase, creativity. Definitely helps my research make me think creative. I am in a clinical trial program right now, so it's always good to think more on the R&D side every now and then.
Thank you so much. And of course, we're going to get into more of what everyone does, but I definitely want to hear about playing with eyeballs all day because I don't think a lot of people get to do that. And I'm sure we're all curious to know what your experience is like. So let's hold that thought for the Q&A session. I'm going to bring in Dr. Jones.
Hi.
Hi, Dr. Jones.
Hi, everybody.
Tell us about yourself.
So currently, I'm a neuroscientist at Children's National Hospital. My specialty is looking into childhood neurological disorders like autism. My training is in cellular and molecular biology as well as biomedical sciences. But my passion and the thing that I am definitely trying to move more towards is using my voice and my ability to create programs to expose young kids or college students or even pre-college, no matter what phase they are in life, students to diversity in STEM, as well as making science fun again. So I do public speaking engagements as well as starting programs with fun hands-on activities to show that science could be fun and you could be a scientist as well.
Thank you. And I think we all have that in common. I think that we're all here for that reason. So I'm really glad that we're all here with each other. I think we're going to have a great time tonight on the STEMbassy. And I think it's ready for us to hop into some hot topics. Are we ready?
Yes.
Yes. There's so much going on in the world right now. And it's kind of hard to keep up. I mean, one day it's this, one day it's that. This week, of course, and the weeks previously, we've been talking about the coronavirus. And last week, we talked about some misconceptions about the coronavirus that people have. You know, we talked about the Lysol thing, which I'm sure you guys are well aware of. People thinking that the word coronavirus applies to the coronavirus, you know, when it really applies to many coronaviruses. It's like a big umbrella term. And so people think that Lysol is like has been holding back information, that we could kill the coronavirus this whole time because Lysol kills it. And I've seen people spraying Lysol on their bodies. I've seen people rubbing cinnamon on their bodies because they did a Google search that said cinnamon kills viruses. So they're rubbing themselves down. And I've seen a lot of things on the internet, and a lot of people are co-signing each other. So we talked about that last week. And this week, some of the new information we have now is that we have our first casualty from the coronavirus outbreak in the United States. And it's been really interesting to see the aftermath of that because I think on the last show, most of us felt like United States wasn't quite ready to handle the outbreak. Do you guys still feel the same way?
Well, I guess it all depends on the severity, but I think having enough supplies, you know, surgical masks, and for people to be able to set up isolation wards, that requires a lot of equipment. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a concern.
Yeah,
I think there's difficulties all around, right? Like you have difficulties in the symptoms being very close to just a common cold or maybe even the flu. So you have difficulties across the board when it comes to the person having the symptoms, not thinking it's serious enough to go to the doctor and say something versus maybe or maybe not the country's ready. I think it plays a lot on both parts, but I think the most important thing is we have to keep ourselves informed, but with credible sources. And mine go-to is CDC's website. When they put information up there, I tend to go to CDC and see what they're saying first and foremost. I know there's a lot of things you can find on Facebook, Instagram, and so on that'll tell you other information, videos, and so on. But if it's not on CDC's website, I refuse to listen to it or pay too much attention to it.
And so I think it's really important what you were saying about credible sources. We know now that the White House is pretty much silencing our top scientists who have the power to inform the public about the coronavirus. And all the information that we get is now, I guess, supposed to be coming through our Vice President, Mike Pence, who does not have a medical background. How do we feel about that?
I don't like it. I don't like getting scientific information from non-scientists. I don't like the idea that we're being filtered for public health information. I do like the hyper awareness now that everyone's washing their hands like all the time out of fear of getting coronavirus. A+, everyone should be washing their hands all the time anyway. But I do not like the fact that a man with no medical background whatsoever is going to be the filter to tell me what's relevant and what's not relevant. That is why we have primary sources, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah,
opinion.
and maybe for some,
Frustration.
right, maybe can somebody explain for the people watching what is a primary source and why it's so important that we as people understand how to look for primary sources and how to identify them?
So a primary source is the person who is creating the information. And in this case, the CDC has a whole network of scientists, epidemiologists, who their job is to gather the data on how many people have been diagnosed, and it's been a confirmed case, what percentage of those people have had severe symptoms and been hospitalized, what percentage have died. And that type of data is really important to keep an eye on so that we can understand how a new virus is spreading. So that would be a primary source. And then secondary sources are one step removed. That's when other people are interpreting that data.
But let's not forget that it does take time for a research project or just the analysis process to occur. So I think sometimes sitting on the outside, I'm not doing any research on the coronavirus. So I am an outsider as well when it comes to this particular topic. And sometimes sitting on the outside, we're like, well, what's going on? Like, why aren't they telling us things? Well, it takes a lot of different variables. We have to have enough people, enough understanding of that or our sample size. Is your sample size even covering, is it appropriate enough to come up with some type of data and conclusions when it comes to the specific topic? So before the information is put out into the universe, you have to allow these credible scientists to be able to say, okay, well, we did the research, the analysis, the observation period, and even whatever else they're going to do when it comes to the topic. You have to give them the time to do that so it can properly inform the public.
Yes, and I think it's that little gap between when the issue first becomes prevalent and then when we find conclusions where there's like a little bit of spark of mistrust from the public. And that's when you get people who start to say, well, the scientists knew all along and the government is trying to do X, Y, and Z to us. And it becomes they become fearful because it's the unknown, but the reality is nobody knows. Like, sometimes scientists don't know. Most of the time we don't know. That's our job, is to figure it out. And it takes time and it takes money, especially in a time where the government is cutting funding to the CDC. That's money that could be used in emergency funds to say, okay, if you guys need to buy 1 million pipettes, so we can conduct this experiment in mass, here you go, make it rain, but we can't make it rain with no money. So that slows down the research. So you have to think about that. And now that we're getting into election time, you really probably want to start looking and making sure that you guys all understand whether or not your candidates support science, and do they have plans that allocate budgets for research and protecting our country. Really, I mean, if our country had no protective measures against the virus, we would be in really tough shape. But all that stuff takes money. So there's so much that comes into play. And
you just gave me another thought too. And I think Alexa brought it up earlier when she mentioned that we're now getting advice from people that don't have a scientific background. I get that we're giving this charge to people to make sure we put the right people in place in the government that are making great and sound decisions when it comes to health and science. But I also charge those individuals who are scientists and so on that are willing to break from the bench. Let's put more people in those positions that have the scientific background so that way we can have those informed decisions, from people that have the background and understanding and know it enough to talk about it.
I agree with you. I definitely think moving forward with the 2020 elections, like personally, I'm not a politician. Personally, I don't really pay much about politics, but I also think like there needs to be more scientists turned politicians a little bit, and it should be for outside of things that are just the Surgeon General. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I'd love to see someone, like I'd love to see, like, I don't know, for a while when I first heard about Ben Carson, I was excited over the idea that a neuroscientist could be running for president. Like, it was just like, okay, you're going to think a lot. Before I did any research, definitely was like, okay, I like this idea of someone who's like has this methodological way of thinking like a scientist, thinking like a surgeon, to kind of now apply that to the political field. And I think, I know, I'm always such a strong component of like crossing over backgrounds, but I definitely think we need more scientists on politics.
I agree.
And I think an important thing to keep in mind about the coronavirus or any new emerging virus is that viruses have the ability to change and to mutate. So what's true right now could be very different a year from now or 6 months from now. And it's definitely something that you want to have scientists monitoring and keeping track of.
Absolutely. 100% correct. Thank you. Well, yeah, we're going to keep a close eye on the coronavirus, as I'm sure everybody is. But again, hand washing is a great way to prevent the spread of the virus. The virus, I believe, it's soap. Does anybody want to explain how soap can kill this virus? I probably should have really looked this up so I could explain it in an easier way. But basically, soap has the ability to disintegrate the coating of the coronavirus. So literally, hand washing can help to destroy the virus. But if you don't wash your hands, there's nothing you can really do to kind of help that, besides locking yourself up in your house and just hanging out there and not infecting anybody else. So make sure you wash your hands.
A quick note about hand washing. There was a study I read about several years ago where they compared antibacterial soap versus regular soap. And it was kind of surprising that it didn't make that much of a difference. Mm-hmm. But really, it's just the practice of, the soap binds to both bacteria and viruses, and then that lathering up and that rinsing helps to get them off the skin. And if you do that, especially before you eat, wash your hands every single time before you eat, then you're so much less likely to put a virus into your body. So it's the number one thing you can do. And another thing is just to try not to touch your face. If you get a little itch or, have something in your teeth, wash your hands first if you're going to touch your face, and just try to minimize that.
Thank you. So I'll definitely update on that next week. Hopefully we have better news next week, but the way that things go, we don't know, but we'll definitely update you guys. All right. So the next topic that I want to talk about is something that a few of us on here are passionate about. I'm sure most of us are passionate about this, and that is making sure, and we're going to kind of switch. I just want to change gears a lot. I'm going to just warn you guys, coronavirus is kind of dark and grim, and now we're going back to our happy place. So just making sure everybody knows we're shifting gears here. We're going to talk about being role models for kids and inspiring kids, young adults, and children to get involved in STEM. And this is something that most of us are really interested in. And I would like to give the floor to Science Mom, if you don't mind, if you can just talk about why that's important to you. And then we'll all just kind of chip in.
Excellent. I discovered my love of science when I was a kid. And when people ask me, why do you like science? I sort of feel like I always have, but it's because my parents encouraged hands-on exploration. And I feel like too many kids nowadays are presented science as trivia. Here's a list of facts you need to know. But science is so much more than that. It's about how we think and how we understand the world. And it's about discovery, finding answers to your curiosity and things you're curious about. So I am super passionate about helping kids discover a love for science. And I think for a lot of kids, it just takes the right experience, the right hands-on learning, and then they're hooked. And then they realize that it's something they're passionate about. But if they don't ever have that exciting science demonstration or that opportunity to tinker and to build something, they might not realize till they're grown up that this was something that they were passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really great perspective on science. And as a graduate student in a doctoral program, a science education doctoral program, a lot of what we talk about is the nature of science. Mm-hmm. And as teachers, educators, how do we present science to students? And we do talk a lot about not making it such a trivia thing and just letting students be themselves, letting students explore and not making it so much of this is wrong and this is right. And just giving them the opportunity to form their own opinions about things and kind of guide them along the way.
One of the earliest science demonstrations that I did for a kindergarten class, I did the demonstration, and afterwards I was inviting the kids to share something they learned or any questions they had. And a little girl who was 5 years old raised her hand and her whole face just lit up. And she said, I learned science is amazing. And I never thought I would think that. And I was equal parts like gratified and a little horrified that at 5, she had already developed this preconception that science wasn't for her.
Right.
And so I think that anything we can do to present it with its hands-on aspects, and I'd love to hear more, Dr. Jones, about what you do, because I agree, hands-on learning is where it's at. That makes such a difference.
Right. So I came from a little different background. I didn't have any role models in science or anybody that was going to influence me towards science that early. And I definitely never even knew there could be a possibility of an African-American female scientist because I hadn't seen one. I know my parents showed me like Bill Nye the Science Guy, but that's all I knew. So in my head, I was probably at that age, I probably thought that was the only way you could be a scientist if you looked like Bill Nye. So now I use that to kind of motivate me towards anything and everything that I do outside of my job or even within my job. I created a program here. I'm at Children's National Hospital, and I work on a specific floor where the patients, they're here for long months or sometimes they're in and out for years. And I had a particular patient come to me and said he really missed school and he just wanted to be around his peers and learn. And I think that really, it just sparked. It was like, come on, Latasia, you love teaching kids. You love being in an environment where you're kind of like starting, leading, and creating. So use your expertise in science and create that atmosphere for him and every other, kid that wants to be involved. And now, not only do I allow myself to expose kids to this diversity in STEM by showing myself as a minority STEM role model, but I use these fun hands-on activities to teach them as well. And it doesn't matter what age a patient comes in here, they're always like enlightened by whatever activity I do. For instance, last week we did the hydrogen peroxide and yeast combination to create exothermic reactions. And it was funny to see how like the kids, even though all I gave them was little goggles and they were just pouring soap and stuff in the hydrogen peroxide that you could buy at a CVS, they were like, let me pour the soap, So it was amazing to see this like excitement in their eyes for the smallest things, but that was me sparking their excitement for science. And yes, I do believe it has to start at a younger age, and we have to deviate from the lecture, let me throw these facts to you and hopefully you can send them back my way, because if we continue that way, this newer generations, they're not receiving anything from that anymore. They're not excited about that, and science isn't dull like that, so why are we supplying it in that way? So I think it is important to have STEM role models and people that are going to initiate these programs and stick out there, even if it's not your job, to make sure that we keep science exciting and at least expose kids before college. My parents were in the military. So what if I decided to go into the military instead of college? I didn't see the first African-American female scientist that I've ever met until my sophomore year of college. So, and it could have worked out in a completely different way. And maybe I never graduated with my PhD. Maybe I never graduated as the first African-American for my program to earn a PhD. So, I always think about these things. What if it went a different way? What if I was exposed to it? Maybe that would have been my first way and my first path of doing things. But even though I wasn't, I still found this lab experience my freshman year, and it just stuck with me. So thank goodness I found that, because all these other things came into play. And now I'm making it my mission to make sure I expose kids and students earlier than I was exposed.
Love it.
Okay, so I just want to make this clear because I want to make sure I understand. You were the first African-American.
So from Florida State University, Department of Biomedical Sciences in the College of Medicine, I was the first to receive my PhD. Yes, ma'am.
What?
Yes.
Okay, hold on a second.
The unconquered one.
Yes.
Now, I think it's great to rejoice in the achievement, right? But it gives me a bigger obligation now.
Yes.
Definitely.
I just want to put this in the chat so we can get it on the record. First African-American graduated from Florida. Did you say Florida State?
Florida State University, Department of Biomedical Sciences.
Florida State University, Department of Biomedical Sciences.
Mm-hmm.
First African-American graduated in the history of the school. That is amazing. Congratulations, and thank you for paving that pathway and providing that precedent for future generations. Just in doing that, you've done so much, and we will probably never even see half of the effects, but you made history. That is fantastic. Great.
Fantastic. It comes with other requirements to.
Yes.
Now it's time for me to make sure I'm mentoring and giving back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you. So I'm looking at the chats. I'm reading the comments. Someone said you broke the glass ceiling. Amazing. Everybody really appreciates you. So well done. Okay. Just putting that in the chat. All right. So Alexa, I know that do you do any work with youth? I wanted to learn more about you.
Yeah, so I don't do any work with youth. I am not too far out of college myself. I graduated in 2016.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, thanks. I've been trying to be a fake adult here in the Bay Area. It's been working.
We're all doing that.
Right.
Put out a couple patents, like doing research, pretending to adult. It's my life. What I don't do, I don't have the opportunity here to really mentor or kind of work with a lot of young children. I work in a very small biotech company. We haven't grown to that size to really have outreach programs. And a lot of things here in the Silicon Valley are really more focused on the computer science side of things, which I am zero help for. What I do though, is I give back to my university by mentoring other young undergraduates and how kind of helping them navigate the field and being a woman in a STEM career. That's usually it's always my big push. I didn't see very many female scientists. I still don't work in an area with a lot of female scientists. I live in Silicon Valley. There's maybe not a lot of females here at all. But I think it's really important to talk to people, especially like I'm a scientist with no real idea, not really like not motivation, but no real plans to go on and pursue my PhD. So it's really kind of been mentoring students who have gone through the same pathways as me or going through the same path where we're like, we really like science, but where's our place in this field without a PhD and without an MD? Like for as many animal research studies as I've done, I hate needles, blood, and sick people. So people are kind of like, well, what are you doing playing with rats and like operating on them at one point in time in my life? But I think that's the way I give back. I don't know if you think like that is the way I give back to my community is by helping other females and kind of showing other females that there is this other way. Like you can totally be successful as a researcher and there's a place for it and there's a necessity for it. And you don't really necessarily need to have that PhD to do valid research and make an impact on the scientific community. So that's kind of more my philanthropic activity lies. People come up to me all the time and they're like, you don't have the personality of a scientist. And I'm supposed to be like, what does that mean? I'm a scientist. I like playing with my eyeballs and my colorful things, but also I have like other activities where I like to go out to eat and I like to go to concerts and I like photography and I want to go on hikes. So I also like showing women that you can almost have it all if you try. I mean, I'm still young in my career, so like there's still things I want to do, but yeah.
You're doing a wonderful job. And I completely agree with what you said, just from, my experience being a biology professor and a STEM academic advisor. A lot of students get into these, specifically biology programs, and they think that the only end product is going to medical school and being a doctor. And I spent so many years just trying to convince students like, hey, before you even go full throttle on this semester, like let's take a career test. I know you've seen Grey's Anatomy. I know you think that's awesome. Mm-hmm. It is awesome, but medical school is hard to get into. And, I want you to make sure that you're committed to that idea. And if you are, like, let's go for it, full throttle. Let's make sure you have a plan B also, let's make sure you're aware of all of the possibilities. Because students often struggle in these programs. And once they realize, oh my God, I need a 3.7 to get into to even be competitive for these schools. I got a 1.9 my first semester. And then they just think that all is lost because their transcripts can look like crap. And the reality is some people still could get to medical school. You know, there's different zigzag paths, loopy-loops that you can do to get there. But some people have considered dropping out. They're like, oh, you know, I can't do anything. I'm like, you could go into research. You would be a great researcher. You can do a nonprofit. You can do science animations because you're a great artist. Like, you can do so much with your passion for science. So what you're doing, Alexa, is really important because some people just get lost along the way. And like, if they don't have someone there to tell them, hey, you know, you could actually make it, and here are your options.
Yeah.
Who knows where they would be.
Right.
Yeah. I will say kind of, oh, my bad. I apologize.
No, I was going to say I definitely agree because I didn't know what a PhD was before college. So the option that I had in my head was to go in MD track with the biology as my concentration. So definitely, if it wasn't for the lab experience, I wouldn't even know. But I think it is important to talk about, you know, those other options that students don't usually know about. And for me, if I would have realized the way my mind works when it comes to research versus working with patients, I think I would have signed up a long time ago. Even before thinking MD, I would have already been like PhD track. So that exposure that you're providing is amazing.
Yeah, I will say, I don't know, maybe it was like also like just the struggle that I went through. I love my undergrad. I will always support it. But at the same time, what I definitely think a lot of undergrads struggle with too is just like the university itself not providing it. Like, just the other options. They really kind of shuffling you in down this MD track. And if you're not pre-med, then you don't have a special pre-med advisor. You can't do that. But at the same time, they're not bringing in like talks from like on all the career fairs. There really wasn't like industry side or pharma side or anything. It was really just PhD or bust. And the university like didn't know what to do with me because I was like, you have this career center. I have this networking opportunities, but you're not bringing in the people that I need to talk to. So I'm not going to say like I got here easy peasy, but like it definitely like took a lot of time to kind of figure out where my place was and academia, industry, and everything like that. Like that was a whole learning curve over the past couple of years of mine.
So science mom, how are you as a science mom working towards making sure that the youth that you interact with are aware of all these different possibilities? And I guess at that age, what are you focusing on? Because I'm not even sure if I had a concept of a PhD, you know, as a child. So what do you do?
Well, one of my main things that I focus on when I do school visits, because there's always a little period for Q&A, and in some recent surveys, 75% of kids age 7 to 12 want to be YouTubers when they grow up. And so I usually try to take a few minutes to kind of debunk the idea that anyone can film themselves being, you know, having fun and be Insta famous, because it's not true. And I'll tell them, you know, if there is something that you're passionate about communicating and that you want to have a platform for, you need to first ask yourself, would you be willing to do that without getting paid? And if the answer is yes, then go forward. But if you're looking for a career, there are so many other options where you will earn more and work fewer hours, and it's going to be a better choice. And when I tell them that my total earnings for 3 years on YouTube is $176, they're just floored. They can't believe it because they think that if I have, you know, if my channel has 7,000 subscribers, I must be making thousands of dollars each month, but that's not the way it works. So that's my main focus right now, is just trying to help kids realize you shouldn't be having this plan that you're going to be an internet celebrity, because it's not realistic and there are other skills that you've got to have.
That's a really good point. I wasn't aware of that. You know, they really want is that statistic true for the kids that you interact with?
You know what, based on how many 4th and 5th graders already have channels and how many kids ask me, you know, it's kind of tough because if you present a fun science demonstration and you say, I'm a YouTuber, and then ask how many of you want to be YouTubers, I think all the hands go up just because, you know, they're just identifying with what you did. But based on the number of kids who already have channels and who ask specific questions about the career, I think that the few studies I've seen that show that 75% want to be YouTubers when they grow up, I think that's pretty accurate.
Well, maybe that's something that we can work on, I guess. You know, we can't ignore that. I'm sure that we as science communicators can like try to figure out how to connect with the youth on that level. Because if they want to do YouTube, Then let's just let the kids do YouTube. But you know, let's encourage that from a science perspective. If we want to get kids into STEM, let's figure out how to do this. Let's do both. Let's figure
Put it on YouTube. Put all your experiments on YouTube, guys.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. Put them on YouTube. We'll get it together. Yeah, that's what they're saying in the chats too. That would be really nice.
Well, I am starting a YouTube channel. It'll be called Kitchen Science, where I'm basically bringing science to YouTube, and all the ingredients and supplies can be found in the house.
Yay!
So it'll be staged in my kitchen, literally. So that way we can see the convenience of not only using the stuff in your own house, but also parents can use it to educate in science as well, and make it really easy by breaking the concepts down, and you have everything there. So it's accessible as well.
Fantastic.
I can't wait for that.
Me neither.
So be sure to let me know so we can check it out once the show is out, because I want to be in my kitchen too, grabbing my ingredients.
Absolutely.
Doing it with you. I have an 8-year-old brother. So, and he wants to be a scientist too. So that would be a really good time for me to sit down with him and be like, look what Dr. Jones is doing.
Well, my handle on everything is Hey Dr. Tay. So Instagram, Facebook, everything, and even YouTube. It's up there as Hey Dr. Tay, but you may also find me as Latasia Jones up there. So
got it. And I just put all that in the chat. So documenting everything. You know how we do. Science is gotta document, record, observe. All right. So another thing that we are all interested in and would like to talk about tonight is about diversity in STEM. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart and something that drives my motivation on a daily basis, especially in science communication. I want to see a diverse science culture, science community. I want to see diverse science workplaces, science learning environments. Those are all things that I want to see. So how do you all feel? What are some, I guess when I say science, diversity in STEM, just verbal diarrhea, like what is the first thing that blurts out of your mouth from your mind?
One of the first thing that comes to my mind was a couple times when I've done an assembly, the school has just known a scientist was coming, but nothing else. And I've literally had like a group of 5th graders come in, and several of them will gasp and say, "It's a girl," because it never occurred to them that the scientist presenting would be female. They just assumed if a scientist coming, it's going to be male. And I think that seeing role models in STEM makes such a huge, huge difference. I really felt, I was one of the only, my undergraduate, my master's degree was in molecular biology, and I was one of the few women in my career. And my undergrad was in crop science, and everyone was like, "Where's your family farm? Why are you in this degree?" And I was in it because I loved it, but there were only two women in the whole entire graduating class in my degree, and everyone else was male. So it makes a difference. I mean, you really do sort of have a subconscious message of you don't belong if there's no one that you identify with in that field. And I think it's so important to be active and to be vocal so other women can see and other minorities can see there's place for you here.
Right. I mean, as well as when you think about the science in itself and having people from diverse backgrounds contributing to science to provide a different way of thinking, maybe different methodology, or just giving hindsight to things that other people from other cultures or other backgrounds just wouldn't know. You have to have that diversity within the people that are actually serving as scientists as well. If I have only one subgroup of people working on a particular project somewhere where they've never been before, and they can't really understand the culture of that area or the people or whatever else, you're doing an undue justice towards science. You're not providing what science needs. So I think it's even beyond having people there, because I could sit here all day and tell you how many times I felt alone going to conferences of 10,000 individuals, 10,000 scientists there, and still looking for the Black one. or looking for the woman. And it is often where you feel like you're alone. But the thing that makes me feel more alone is when people come into communities that I have lived in or could live in, because the majority of people that are there are minorities, and they do these research projects on whatever the topic is, but you're not utilizing people that came from those areas as well to contribute to the understanding of the project. So I think that's, in totality, we're thinking about the holistic view of diversity in STEM and how it can impact research. It goes beyond just having role models. It also goes into, are we doing good science without that diversity in the scientists?
Thank you. There's so much to digest.
Sorry. I mean, these are the things that I think about, right? Like,
no, you're right. You're so right. And my experience in diversity in science has been kind of weird. So I am also a molecular scientist. My bachelor's and master's were both in molecular biology, and there were plenty of women in my classes. And then when I got to corporate, I worked as a corporate scientist, and there were plenty of women. Like the lab was run by women. Now the women didn't hold senior positions. The men held senior positions. So the director of the lab was a man. His on his same level, same tier, his associates were males, but everyone else was a woman. We were running the show. Okay. So I have a different perspective on this. And looking at the statistics, biology is a bit more diverse than the other STEM fields. I think that computer science and engineering, those are the least diverse as far as gender goes. But biology, I've been very fortunate to have, mostly female experience. Now, when we talk about race and ethnicity, I've definitely pretty much always been the only chocolate chip in the cookie. And sometimes that was okay. Sometimes that was fine because the people who I was surrounded by were really, really great people and inclusive people and embraced me as if there was nothing different between us. And then I've also worked in environments where literally no one would talk to me. And I'm like, hello, like, am I invisible? What's going on? Because I'm just here to have a good time and do some research. Like, what's going on? And that really sucked. Like, that was actually a really painful experience. So, there's such, and I like to hear other people's experiences because I feel like there's just such a spectrum. Times are changing and environments are changing, and we have such a spectrum of experiences. And who's Alexa? Was that you? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say my company's really weird. So for the first time, so I was always like neuro was always a little bit neuro and psych. I was a neuropsych in college. That was always more female dominated. My university was a little bit more female heavy. But what I noticed, like once I got to the corporate world, and like a lot of people that I looked up as role models were all men. And so just kind of like you said, men kind of like women were just kind of like in the bench doing lab work. But like making all the research go around. But what I think is interesting is now I'm at this company, and it could just be the area that I'm in. Like I said, I'm in Silicon Valley, and we're definitely a lot more liberal than everyone else. But it's what's been really interesting and kind of like eye-opening for me and like really inspiring for me is that my company is basically ran by women. Like CEO is a woman, the head of preclinical is a woman, the CMO is a male, but like CTO is now open interviewing regardless. But like it's interesting to see like a lot of people, like the head of my department's a woman. My boss is a Hispanic gay man, which is great. Like he's the manager of this whole histology team in my company, which like now is a team of 2, but like it's growing. Like the CEO is a lesbian woman. Like it's just very interesting to like see these preconceived almost stereotypes of things that like women couldn't do. LGBT is going to be shoved in a corner somewhere and just ignored. But it's been not interesting, but like exciting to see this space of change right now and like kind of seeing it happen in this industry environment where the key people are all these different things.
And there is a big change happening. So I graduated close to 20 years ago from college, but last year, the number of women graduating from college passed the number of men. So we have more female graduates with undergraduate degrees than we do men currently. And my my husband teaches a school here in Nevada that's, I think, a little bit unusual, and I'm not entirely sure why the demographic is skewed this way, but the undergraduates at the school, it's almost 3/4 female to male. So things really are changing in that regard.
Yeah.
And so it kind of goes back to information and statistics. On Instagram, I'm noticing lately a lot of people are fighting these statistics that kind of show women at a disadvantage in STEM, because statistically, when you kind of look at the numbers, we are becoming well represented in some regards, and the tides are changing. So I try not to cite any specific statistics because things are so dynamic right now, especially from what I've seen being a professor at the undergraduate level. My classes are filled with girls. I mean, women. I mean, just like, I'm like, where are the guys? Where are they? They're not in my classroom, and I'm teaching a STEM course, STEM majors. So the tides are changing. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what's to come.
So can I add something to that?
Of course.
So I have actually looked into these statistics as well, right? Because it confuses me at times too. If you take it in a general case, yes, there are more women going into these fields, more women getting degrees, and when it comes to just the basic word science or the basic word STEM or acronym STEM. But when you break it down and go all the way to how many PIs are there that own their labs, or, how many people are, like she was bringing up, top of these businesses that are STEM, focused, that's when you get to the real, issue of the, where if you have so many that have these degrees, what happened along the way? So, I think that's where we're now facing when we talk about this issue and diversity. We're not really talking about beginning, it's more so the end, but we kind of have to help each other get from the beginning to the end now. So I think you're absolutely right. It is kind of confusing. When it came to the neuroscience statistics, there is probably the same amount of women, but when you look at color and ethnicity, there isn't that many African Americans. I'm just speaking for my background. So yes, you have to be a little bit more focused on specifics.
Thank you. And that is very true. And there are some reports out there, and I wish I could cite the exact name, but if you look specifically for reports that they do every year that tell you about the different levels, so undergraduate versus in the workforce versus like at senior positions, there are reports that do break that down. And they do show exactly what Dr. Jones is saying, is that there is still a retention issue as far as women gaining seniority in these fields and progressing as authorities in STEM. So we're working on it. Yeah. I think that's a big reason why we're here. I think it's very telling that I have a hard time recruiting men for this show. And I don't know if this is just a very feminine vibing show, but like, if there's any men watching, this is not a girls only, women only show.
I have a few options your way. Now that I know there's an issue, I have a solution.
Yeah, I don't know where the dudes are, but they're not here. Like the show is booked until May, and it's women. So, we're definitely representing here. Right. I'm glad that we have a platform to get our voices heard. It's really important. Okay. Well, does anyone have anything else to add? Because I think we're ready for a game.
Party.
I'm ready for a game. Okay. So thank you to everyone who is still holding on, hanging in the conversation, contributing in the chat. I'm reading the chat. A lot of future is female. I see women rule, someone said. Diversity. Everybody's just feeling the vibes. We're going to go on to our game. And just as last time, we have prizes for our audience winners. There was one audience winner to our trivia question. And of course, this is going to be so contradictory to what we just talked about. Talking about science is not trivia, but it's the internet. We don't have a lot of games to play. Okay? We're doing our best. Okay. This is not graded. So just take it easy, all right?
And trivia is fun.
Trivia is fun
It
and free money, okay? So there, you get rewards. The prize is a $5 Amazon gift card. I'm going to ask you a question in regards to STEM. And usually the topic is about STEM history. I'm not going to give you guys a lot of time because we're playing on the internet. And of course, you have Google right to your advantage here. So I'm not going to give you enough time to Google it. I'm giving you just enough time to blurt it out if you actually know the answer. So we're going to get my timer. I'm going to put 20 seconds on my timer. Okay, and so I'm going to ask my question. My question is, I want to know in the chat, by the way, my 3 guests here, if you know the answer, please do not say it. This is for our audience. If you do want to say it, we have a private chat here on the side for you. For the audience members, I want to know who is the first woman to win a Nobel Prize in science, and your time starts now. I want to know who the first woman is to win a Nobel Prize in science. When you hear my timer go off, that means that your time is up. And I won't be accepting any other answers after the time is up on my end. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so no one got the answer, but I'm looking at the chat and someone said, Jay and Amanda, I think we're excluded from the prize question. You guys were not excluded from the prize question.
I think I see someone who got it. Malathia Nararan. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name right. Do you see that?
I do see it. Malathia, you did get it. Yes, look at it. Malathi. Marie Curie is the correct answer. Marie Curie is the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. She won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903 with her husband Pierre Curie and Henry Becquerel. I don't know if I said that correctly, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. She's the only woman to have won multiple Nobel Prizes. In 1911, she won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. So let's give a round of applause for Miss Marie Curie, holding it down for the ladies in STEM. All right. Malathia is actually last week's winner of the Amazon $5 gift card. Malathia, I already have your email address, so I'm going to go ahead and get that prize to you ASAP after the show's over. Thank you for playing. You're great. So we don't have to have a second round because this time our winner got it the first try. But just to follow up, just for fun, this is not for prize. Does anybody know who the first Black Nobel Prize winner is in science?
Ooh. I do not.
Oh, I thought it was for them, right?
So does anybody want to answer that? Anybody have an answer? So to my knowledge, there isn't one. So I think that means we have a lot of work to do. So let's go ahead and get on a project and get these prizes. No, but hopefully, I would like to see people of color being recognized for their science, and hopefully that is another glass ceiling that we'll be breaking very soon, making more history and setting more paths. But until then, we just have to keep working to inspire these scientists and keep grinding. So well played, everyone. Thank you for participating. So now we're going to have a Q&A session with our scientists. I'm included. So the 4 of us, we have me, Raven, Baxter, also known as Raven, the science maven, molecular scientist. We have Science Mom, molecular scientist, also science mom, and child enthusiast extraordinaire. We have Dr. Jones, neuroscientist. we have Miss Alexa, ocular, oh my gosh, histologist, did you say?
Yeah.
Ocular histologist. And aren't you also a gene therapy researcher?
Yeah, so my company does gene therapy work. So all of my histology tissues that I've been playing with now have been for our gene therapy related product. I guess that's the best way to say, but yeah.
Okay, great. So we are all scientists. And now is a Q&A opportunity for our audience members. We're just going to be here to answer any questions that you all have, whether it's about our path that we took to get into our STEM career, whether it's about our everyday lives, whether it's about our personal lives, anything that we feel comfortable sharing. I'm pretty much an open book. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the post. I'm actually going to make everyone ask something. So you guys don't have a choice. Everybody has to ask something. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask something. So I want to know from you all, what's the fun part of your day? Like what makes you want to come to work or continue doing what you do every day? And I'll start with Dr. Jones.
So the thing that keeps me excited about going into work every day, and it would have to be the science and the way that it makes me think, and not knowing what's going to happen next in my, like, for instance, if I'm answering a question in my project, not knowing what the answer is. I'm very curious. Some people will call it nosy. So regardless of which one you go with, I love the fact that I'm nosy or curious, because science allows me to explore that curiosity and use what I know from my background in research, as well as use novel techniques that I read about in the papers to figure out the answer to certain questions. That's the thrilling part of science for me. And even just reading a paper and seeing what somebody else did, I'm provided that same excitement.
What about you, Alexa?
So being histology, what I love about my science is the fact that it's very colorful, and I like to run all these immunofluorescent stains and H&E stains. So for me, it really is the visual joy, like instant gratification of the science. Like, I appreciate your mold bio and everything, but like I like being able to take a tissue and see it's all colorful and be like, I did that. What I really like too, that motivates me to go to work every day, is now being on the industry side of things. I really see my science making an impact on the community. Pending this clinical trial goes well, of course, because my company is like really reliant on our one clinical trial going on. But even just the public data that's already been announced has really shown an impact on changing people's lives, and just kind of knowing that I played a small part in it and helped improve someone's standard of care for the better, even like a very clinical trial stage, is really exciting and really motivates me to go to work every day.
I have two favorites. One is seeing, when I do a science demonstration and share something exciting, seeing that look of wonder on kids' faces, where, you know, they just like their jaws drop and their eyes get big and they're so excited and surprised. And then the second thing that I love is just the creative process of editing and designing. I make worksheets and things that go along with my science videos, and I really enjoy editing. It's something I've always loved, tinkering with something and improving it.
Thank you. And I enjoyed all of your answers. We have a ton of questions now in the chat, so I'm going to just look at the chat now. And let's see. So Robin said, what are you doing to prepare for a local outbreak at home? Good question. So for me personally, since I work in education, I'm making sure that my campus has the tools in place in case we do have an outbreak. Do we have masks? Do we have enough hand sanitizer? Do we have enough soap? You know, in the bathroom, what kind of soap is it? Things like that. Making sure the nurse's office is stocked. Making sure, you know, that we're educating the students on the virus and what to do, what not to do, and just being a little bit more careful. And really, we do have a little bit of power in each of our situations to kind of control, in some case, the outbreak, as long as we voice what we know. So that's my little way of doing it. But what about you guys?
Part of my preparation is focused on my kids. I have 3 kids, and so telling them, the mortality rate, it looks to be between 1% and 2%, which when you think about it, this isn't something that you should be losing sleep over or, be super fearful of. Yes, if it goes worldwide, 1% of our population is huge. We don't want it to go worldwide. But I'm trying to alleviate some fear on their part. And then for me personally, I guess the impact I'm just curious to see like what future events might be canceled, because I've got some larger conventions coming up. And that's kind of the thing that I'm thinking about, coming with alternative plans if large gatherings do start to be canceled because of the coronavirus.
What I'm sticking by right now is I work at the hospital. So they already supply tips and ways to, prevent or to things to be on the lookout for. And I'm always washing my hands or sanitizing my hands. But so this is something that I realized recently, even the adults, when we go through like the little seminar where we're learning the most basic things like washing your hands, people are always shocked about the way that it is written to wash your hands. So, just take some time and maybe re-look at those steps, those procedures. I know it sounds simple, like I learned this in kindergarten, or even just using sanitizer. Some people will use sanitizer and they'll walk away and it's still wet and touch something. That's the incorrect way of using sanitizer. You're supposed to allow it to completely dry before you go anywhere else. So using the information that I'm provided, once again, I know I probably beating the nail on the head too many times to the point where it's flat, but I use credible sources. I'm getting my information from, those who they've already gone through the process of weeding out, the bad, the good, and so on. They're giving me tips of how to deal with these things. So washing the hands, being noticeable of people that have symptoms of anything, which is on my daily, if I see somebody just sneezing, coughing, or whatever else, and not using the best of hygiene. If it's a kid or something, I try to provide guidance. I know adults, usually it's kind of weird telling an adult, hey, you just sneezed in your hand, you may want to da-da-da-da. But when I'm in a hospital environment, I definitely do it because it's my job. So just being noticeable of those things. And because sometimes we're in those environments where it's not as quarantined or clean or safe or whatever, washing my hands a little bit more to make sure I'm protecting myself.
Yeah, I'm up there with Dr. Jones. I'm just gonna keep washing my hands. I feel like I'm a little bit too close for comfort to coronavirus right now. With someone who was actually affected was taken to a hospital down the street from me. So I'm really just kind of like maybe thinking about wearing gloves more often than I have been, just being paranoid and taking them from lab, but really just like washing your hands. Maybe we'll see about my travel plans this summer, but that's pending scientists.
Okay, so let's see. Next question was, what advice do you ladies have for breaking into industry/corporate science? Oh, the joys of corporate science. Oh, the joys. So I guess let me just say that corporate science is very different from academic science and academia in the space of a college or university. And those are two completely different cultures. So definitely be prepared for that. Be prepared to work in a corporate environment. There's a lot more money at stake. In my case, I was working for a $1 billion company, and we had a ton of money. But with that came a lot of responsibility. A lot of the experiments that we worked on were very high stakes, very expensive, and there's not a lot of room for error. So, just remember that's a lot of that is a huge difference from working in academia, where budgets are small and the experiments usually aren't very high stakes. There's a lot of room for error because you're a student and you're learning. So generally you're not working on crazy, groundbreaking experiments because they're training you to do that in a different space. So get ready for that. Definitely make sure that you are well-versed in your field, or at least ready to become well-versed in your field. Never stop reading. never stop doing research. Always keep up on whatever's the latest and the greatest. Subscribe to academic journals, news feeds, subscribe to like newsletters, science newsletters, so that every day you're reading something that's new. And so that when you work on new things in corporate, you're not left behind and everyone else is like, yeah, so what about that CRISPR experiment? And you're just like, oh, CRISPR, what's that? Don't be that person, okay?
And
yeah.
And I would add, take advantage of wherever you're at. There will be career development opportunities. So if it's, you're at college, and if you're out of college and you're looking to get into an industry or corporate science position, check out your local library, because simple things like having other people look at your resume and give feedback, practicing interviews, those simple things can make a big difference. But a lot of it comes down to connections too. Trying to, attend some conferences, just make sure that you form some of those connections that might help lead to knowing about a position.
Yeah, I'll add to Science Mom too. Like, I work in industry and corporate. I just made the transition like a year and a half ago from academia to it. I got my job through a recruiter, just like local science recruiters, companies, especially. Like, I don't work for a big, like I don't work for Gilead or Thermo Fisher. Like, I work for a small company of about 100. I think we just now capped off at like 125 utter max. It's like the biggest the company's ever been. And I got that through a recruiter, and yeah, it took me changing my career path a little bit. My undergrad is in neuroscience, and now I'm playing with eyeballs. But yeah, like, use your resources. Like, I definitely think that was how I broke into industry. I talked to people about the differences between academia and industry. Coming straight from academia, it's definitely a lot more laid back. I have snacks. I'm more clinic focused, clinic and patient focused, which I think brings me joy to day to day. I'm no longer working on a rat. I'm working on like non-human primate tissue. But also, like Raven said, all of my studies are super high stakes. My projects are multi-million-dollar projects, and I'm dealing with million-dollar tissue. And it's just like, there's only one eyeball, and if you mess it up, it's not like I'm getting a biopsy of an eye and I can just maybe go find another liver biopsy. It's like, I ruin tissue. There's only one fovea. Like, I ruin enough fovea slides. That study is trash. And I have made mistakes in my life. I've definitely gotten yelled at it. So I'm not going to say it's like you make a mistake and something like that and you're fired, but like, definitely not the highest points of my career here. So it's a give and take. I like it though. I'll say that.
I've been there. I recall a story where I was working on an experiment, and somebody, always label your tubes. Okay. When you're in a lab, if you're working on something, label your tubes, label your test tubes, label your Eppendorf tubes. Label everything, because when you walk away from your bench, we don't know what's on your bench. And if I don't know what's on your bench, it might be thrown out. I mean, I'm just saying, like, so that happened one day, and somebody left like a dry, crusty test tube on a bench, and I needed that bench to do a Western blot. And so I just like throw it off to the side. I'm like, okay, this is obviously an evaporated, something. I threw it out. It wasn't labeled, so it obviously wasn't important to somebody. So I get back to my Western blot, and I see like my lab mate frantically like looking around like, oh my God, like where's the test tube? I'm like, I threw it out. Like, did you? What was in it? It wasn't labeled. She was like, that was like $30,000 like worth of protein, and I'm like, luckily it was okay. We were able to salvage that, but like, those are the kind of things that happen, and it's an honest mistake. Like, in my training, I was always trained, label your stuff. Even if it's waste, you're supposed to label it waste, right? So that people know this is waste. It's waste. You can throw this out. Or if it's something you don't care about, and okay, whatever. But like, that's the kind of stuff that happens, and that could be a $30,000 mistake just because you were trained to throw things out when they're not labeled, if it's just sitting there. So, corporate, hey.
Y'all gonna be back there 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Yes. And you get up and you do the bench. Yes, but it's fun. Like, discovering things is fun. Making bonds with your fellow scientists and working on science is fun. So Definitely don't want to lose sight of that. So our next question is, do you think scientists should take a business class? So much of science is business driven. Very good question. Anybody else want to take that?
I think so. I've said this for a while now. I actually am kind of contemplating whether or not I should get some type of certification, because it is a lot of entrepreneurship or whatever else that streams from research a lot of times. And in order to capitalize off a lot of the projects in different ways, you kind of have to go into that business element. So it does take it, and I would advise it or suggest it for those who are contemplating whether or not they want to do that. Wish I would have done it, but I also know being in the bench is not my long-term goal. So, for instance, my dissertation professor, he has a company now. So I'm pretty sure that he uses a lot of elements in business or understanding and getting people to be in the right positions to make sure his company keeps thriving. So based on my mentorship from him, I would say yes, and I would definitely recommend that.
I agree. One of the perks of working for Stanford is they give you what's known as STAP funds, and I took it to go to conferences and stuff. I took a project management class, and it was easily the best thing because, especially like I said, I don't have a PhD. I don't have plans to go to graduate school. If I were to go to graduate school, it would be to get my MBA, just because I am very extroverted and I want to be that business person in it. But it was interesting, even just like a one-time project management course made it so much easier for me to understand like my PI at the time's grants and just how to like kind of make a research proposal. And so it was interesting to kind of see the class be taught very businessy, and like how to get a drone to deliver pharmaceuticals, I think was my project, or like fake project I had to work on. And so it was just interesting then to take something very businessy and realize how easily it applies to science. And it's made me organize my experiments a lot better and time things out better and put like formal names to things that I'm just like, it's my plan. It's not your plan. It's like your mission and your research plan sort of thing.
That is fantastic. They really did a great job prepping you for going into corporate science.
I did it myself. Let's be real here. No one was like, this is the XYZ route, but you kind of take things like, I also took a coding class because I'm in Silicon Valley and I don't understand computer science. If anyone in the chat understands computer science, holla at me because I don't understand and I live down the street from Google. But yeah, just like things like just from my personal experience, like it definitely worked out a lot better. I figured what could hurt can't hurt. My bad.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that scientists should take a business class because everything's money when you get to that corporate level. At least from my experience, that's what I can speak from. Everything you do is money. Budgeting for experiments is money. Like, making sure that you know how to calculate budgets and how much should I spend on this experiment? How much money do we have? How many bottles of DI water should I buy for my PCR? And how much is that going to cost? And do we have that money? If so, okay, great. All of these things come into play. And if you've never really been exposed to business or even just like how to handle money in general, that's another learning curve for you when you get into that type of environment. You have to learn all that from scratch. So definitely, I feel like there should be for scientists like a business for scientists class at universities so that we can really prep people to get into these environments. Honestly, I have a lot of opinions about curriculum development for science programs, but that, in the context of what we're talking about, that should definitely be a class. A project management class like Alexa took is powerful. And I think going back to what we were talking about as far as women being minorities in management, mandating a project management class for a science program could give everybody that same level playing field. We all, like, if everybody's had that training, we've all been exposed to how to manage projects. That makes us all eligible to manage a project and be an authority in STEM. So right. Alexa, I think you're onto something right there. I
will also say user resources, by the way, being, like I said, at Stanford, they had tuition assistance if you worked there full time. And a lot of industries also do have some sort of like extracurricular sort of like educational budget. So I will say, if you're interested, like totally like I do because I've done my research on like night classes and online classes to do my MBA because I don't want to take time off of my research to do it. And that's the other dichotomy. So like look at where you're researching, use your university or your industry's resources. They have them there for you, and then you get to pay less money because they're subsidizing for it. And then you get like this nice degree and you didn't really have to pay for all of it. It's like a free scholarship. It's great.
We like free and we like scholarships. So.
Yeah. Resources. Spend the 10 minutes to see what's available to you and you will save thousands of dollars. And then you can buy the nice shoes you want.
Alexa's a hustler. Let's give it up for Alexa.
I know what I like, y'all.
Oh, yes. She had a will and she found a way. Can I get an amen? Good for you, sis. Good for you. I love it. That's what you got to do. You know, if there's not a way paved, you got to just go ahead and do it yourself. And you did that.
It's sitting there. Like, don't let anyone take your money. Why would you pay more money for it? This is
okay. Listen, we like our money. We like our coin. Okay, so our next question. How do you self-care or mentally take care of yourself while researching and teaching? I'll let you guys have the floor on this. Self-care.
I mean, I teach dance class, so I think that's fun. It's definitely a way, like I said earlier, I teach a dance fitness class. Definitely a way for me to be an hour outside the lab bench and spend a few times during the week learning new choreography. Got like Beyonce in my playlist, so like anyone dancing to Beyonce feels fierce. So that's a really big part of my mental health. And making friends outside of STEM, also a big part of my health, because then I'm not just talking science the whole time. I'm baking cookies. I'm going out to eat. I'm drinking wine. So it's a balance.
Yeah, so self-care is really important. And I think having a balance, exercise makes a big difference to me personally. And so lately I've been doing a lot of swimming, and that really makes a big difference to take time to exercise. And I think if you feel like you don't have time because of your schedule, reminding yourself that you'll be more productive in the long run if you do take those breaks to take care of your physical body and to have downtime to rejuvenate, because your brain does need downtime.
I agree. When I was working on my dissertation, I picked up this hobby of running. I say hobby because I didn't realize it was something for me. And then I started running 5Ks and stuff, and it became like something I was more, very focused on doing more so like at least once a month. And now while in the postdoc position, I kind of like completely kicked that to the curb, and I'm just getting myself back into finding those ways of relaxing after work or finding other ways of relaxing, period. So I travel a little bit more. I try to have like girls' nights at my place, and just allowing myself to be surrounded by people that are going to keep me motivated and happy, and you take my mind off of science, because I think sometimes as a scientist, we keep our mind in literature or in the lab so much where it's like you're not thinking about anything else. So although I am transitioning into a new position soon, I am now utilizing those ways of relaxing, and my new schedule will hopefully allow me to do more and go back to the things that I did that provided that happiness before as well. So we'll see. I fell off for a little while and keeping myself healthy as far as taking care of myself. But every now and then I put something in there that reminds me, you need to get back to this.
I think that we all made some really good points as far as that balance goes, and something that I really realized once I kind of switched gears, because my training, I'm trained as a molecular scientist, but now my PhD is in science education, which is a social science. And when I started this program, I had a complete culture shock, because I realized that I had really been just using one section of my brain. And I don't think we realize as scientists how heavily we focus in on science and how much of our passions and our thought processes are so technical, so scientific, so analytical. And I actually struggled in an education program to start with, because I'm like, wait a second. My opinion matters. I can think about, like, I can form my own theories. And like, what? So there's no real wrong answer here. I can kind of just do my thing. And that's also research, and that's also, considered valid. I said, wait a second, my life is a lie. Like, what have I been doing? And I think that's just me speaking from the education standpoint, but in our everyday lives as scientists, I think it's important that we take a step away from our science and just connect the circle, because science can't be the only thing we have going for ourselves. We have so much more to offer and so much more to explore and so much more of our mind to use. So just like Alexa hangs out with people who aren't scientists, I think that's fantastic. Keep doing that, because that's also diversity in your life, and making sure that you're getting out running and not sitting at the lab bench all day, because sitting all day is not really healthy for us. Those are all ways that we do self-care. So yeah, as far as specifically self-care for me, I don't know, just keeping a positive mindset and putting good things into my body. That's pretty much how I do self-care. So I'm trying to see if we have any other questions here in the chat. One last question. This is for Dr. Jones. Neuroscientist, what do you do? Give some examples.
Wow, examples. Okay, so I specifically look at the brain development of a child, and I'm trying to understand how abnormalities in brain development can manifest into certain neurological disorders. So I use experimental models, which is a fancy word of saying I use rodents and basically utilize understanding their brain development and the comparisons or similarities to humans, and utilize them as the model for observing what's going on in brain development. And then when I get more specific into looking at specific genes or proteins that are already expressed or abnormally expressed in things such as autism, using that experimental model once again to understand what's going on with that protein during that development. So in particular, I'm looking at the corpus callosum. It's it's the connection between both hemispheres of the brain, responsible for the transmission of signals and communication across both. And abnormalities in its development have been associated with autism. So of course, there's these other reasons why kids may have autism, right? So this is one of those misconceptions that a lot of people have when they say, why haven't we cured cancer yet? Or why are we still having kids with autism? There's so many reasons why diseases occur. And one reason for autism is abnormalities in the development of specific regions of the brain. It could be more than one. It could be more than one protein, but specifically this scientist right here, I'm looking at the corpus callosum, and I am looking at one protein that's expressed during its development and trying to understand it better as far as in the normal case, what's going on. And then when it's abnormal, what's happening. And I do, Alexa brought it up earlier, I do rodent surgery. I manipulate DNA and try to understand what's going on when the DNA is normal versus when it's not normal. So that way we can figure out the function of this particular protein and the development of that corpus callosum region in the brain. So in a nutshell, trying to make sure I don't lose anybody. And if there's more questions, of course, you can always ask. Like I said, I'm Hey Dr. Tay on everything. So if you have questions, please send them my way. I just hope I didn't lose anybody. But in a nutshell, that's what I do. I use microscope. I use immunofluorescence, which is just that ability to use something that's going to light on, for instance, I use GFP, which is green fluorescent protein, to be able to visually see neurons, which are those cells within the brain that send the signals, and allows the communication within the brain. And I use GFP, or that green fluorescent protein, to see that when I'm looking in the microscope. And it also allows me to come up with these images to understand what's going on in those regions of the brain, or what's going on with that specific protein that I'm looking at, and so on. Great images. Yeah, so you see, over here, you see neurons all the way to the right. You see like the processes and its development and so on. And then This third one, the one that's straight in the middle right now on the bottom. Oh, sorry. I know where you're going. So yeah, you're seeing like neurons and cell bodies of the neurons and so on, which are green. I am probably just going to assume that the blue, I have no idea why there's blue there. I'm not going to assume for you because I don't know whose research that is. But utilizing different colors to understand different functions of things and labeling things so that way you could better identify it in a system and then understand it more. And I'm just specifically doing this in the brain, but people do these throughout the whole body, right? You can use, like Alexa, she uses it for the brain, right? Mm-hmm. Using the same techniques, but in different regions. And this is what a scientist does, where we can use these techniques across the board, no matter what the research project is, or we can adapt new techniques and utilize it within our project. So I like to bring up this experiment if anybody is interested. I use in utero electroporation. And in a nutshell, I take a pregnant mouse mom, do a C-section, take out her embryos, and I use the DNA that I've manipulated to understand better later on whether it's a DNA with the loss of function or a DNA with the function there, put it in the brain, put the embryos back in, let them be born later on. After, well, mom's stitched up, of course, she's under sedation, so she's not feeling anything, guys. The babies are born, the pups are born later on. They develop, and when they get to that point in development, brain development that I'm interested in studying, I look at their brain at that moment to understand what's going on with the DNA that I've implanted. And this is like a novel technique. It's not so novel, but it's one of those techniques that are very difficult, but it helps you understand and answer your question with that particular project. So this is what we do across the board as scientists. We use different techniques to understand different things. And a lot of times the techniques are the same and the project's just different. The point is to answer questions.
Okay, pause. So you you do a C-section, you remove the uterus, you extract DNA from the uterus via electroporation.
No, so I have, so we already have DNA that we make and we grow up in colonies in E. coli, basically. And then after isolating that DNA, making sure it's clean and everything, you create your own little sample of DNA and put it into the brain. It's not coming out of mom mouse. It's DNA already isolated elsewhere.
Got it. Okay. All right. We're good. We're good. We're good. Okay. So the E. coli is just the expression.
It's just a fast way of reproducing, a fast way of generating that DNA.
Right. That, yes. I used to do, what was it called? Giga Prep?
Oh, yeah. So I do a lot of maxis.
Mm-hmm.
So these are just words to say how much you want to prepare in your DNA. Giga and maxi, you have minis, which are smaller, but this is just how much you want to prepare. And if you have a lot of experiments coming up, you want to prepare enough to supply along the line and not have to keep going back and forth and creating or supplying your own DNA for your project. So yes, do all the preps, the transformations in E. coli, having the DNA ready, and then finally getting to the actual technique. So science takes time.
It does. Giga Prep itself is an overnight process. So, right. I mean, anyway, wow, very interesting. And I'm sure that most of the people in the chat are kind of like, But this is how we talk. This is how scientists talk. And if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. Again, she's at Hey Dr. Dr. Tay on all of her social media handles. And I'll put that in the chat again. Hey, Dr. Tay. And you guys I'm sure she's open to you all reaching out to her for any clarifications. I'm sure she loves to explain her research. So feel free to reach out. Are there any other questions? I don't think that there are any other questions in the chat. So, and I think that this is a perfect time to conclude the show because we did run over as I expected, but hey, we get to talking and having a good time. And Dr. Tay, not Dr. Tay, I'm sorry, Dr. Jones.
It's okay,
Supernova Natural said that was a great explanation of what you do. It makes a lot of sense why science takes time. So
yay, I touched on y'all.
Yes. So people are understanding. And so don't fear when you guys don't get answers. I think, you know, a lot of what we see today, we're so used to information. Information is so quick. Social media, everything is out there in a matter of seconds. And science is not that fast. We have technology, but it will be a really long time, if ever, will we be able to get answers that quickly. We're not there. So you guys have to be patient. And just because we don't have answers doesn't mean we won't ever have answers. Doesn't mean we're trying to kill you. Doesn't mean that we're hiding stuff. It just means science takes time. So if you guys got anything out of this tonight, we definitely want you to embrace science, understand how science occurs, and understand what science looks like. We are all scientists, and all of us are very different, but we all have things in common, and we all enjoy spreading the love and the nature of science. And so I want to say thank you to everybody who was in the chat contributing to our conversation. Congratulations again to Miss Malathi for winning again her $5 Amazon gift card.
Woo!
For knowing her science facts and history. And I would like to extend a special thank you to each and every one of you scientists for joining me in the STEMbassy Science Mom. Thank you, Alexa. Thank you, Dr. Jones. Thank you, especially since it's a Sunday night and I'm sure we all have things to do, want to get ready for our week. So I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. And you're welcome to come again at your leisure. You know how to sign up for the show. So the link is open to you guys to join again at any time. And if there's no other questions from the chat, I'm going to say peace out. And see you next Sunday for the STEMbassy. Bye.
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 Oh, quick. Before we go, I know that each of one of you have things going on. So I definitely want you to plug your individual, if you have a business, if you have a product, if you have an initiative. Before we go, I absolutely will stop talking and let you guys take the floor.
I have an educational YouTube channel called Science Mom. If you Google Science Mom, it will come right up. And every Wednesday, we have a video with a hands-on science experiment that kids can do at home. So that's what I'll plug. I'm on Instagram at the Science Mom, so you can find me there as well, and I post pictures there daily.
So I am starting a lot of new things, a lot of new ventures. I am utilizing, as I said, I'm going to utilize media as one of the platforms to spread science, fun, and excitement through hands-on activities. I've also started a few programs. And I'm in the process of starting a nonprofit with my very good friend, Dr. Adrienne Stevenson. And she is a neuro PhD from FAMU in Florida. So we'll be starting a program together to, one, expose early students to diversity in STEM, as well as providing that mentorship in those programs that do the fun hands-on activity to continue to provide excitement through science. So follow me, like we've been saying throughout the show. I hate to say it again, but just in case you didn't catch it, hey Dr. Tay, HEYDRTAY on everything. And the new show that will be on YouTube, which I'm announcing in the middle of March, will be Kitchen Science, which I already have the YouTube channel up. It's under my name, Latasia Jones, right now. I hopefully can change it in the future to Hey Dr. Tay as well to make it easy. But yes, let me know. And if you ever just want to reach out and be a part of any of the programs, I have Young Scientist Wednesdays at Children's National, where I do the hands-on activities for the patients. If you are a mentor or a scientist yourself, or somebody that does something and want to show the kids something exciting in science, let me know. Just reach out to any of those handles.
And I'm just at Alexa Levinson for everything in my life. I do not post very much science stuff. I like to keep my science, especially being in industry, a lot of it's confidential. I do post to my Instagram every now and then with a funky eyeball photo, or just like weird dance stuff, or just like food in the Bay Area. But all y'all are like more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn too. Especially like my company is always growing. I'd love to have you guys come out here and be scientists with me, because obviously networking is caring and sharing is caring too. So please shoot me a link, hit me up on Insta at Alexa Levinson, or on LinkedIn, same thing. And I'm happy to talk to you about histology and industry life and whatever you want to navigate.
Thank you, ladies. And again, thank you for being ambassadors to STEM and being open to people coming to you. And I'm sure, everybody looks at scientists and with such, we have such prestige and people really look up to us. And I think it's really important that we're accessible and normalized because we're just regular folks with families and jobs and lives, and we just love science. So don't be afraid to contact us with questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. We don't expect you to be an expert. Even if you just want me to tell you what DNA is, I can do that. That's okay. Yeah. So again, good night. And now that we've all said our piece, we're gonna go. See you next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.